right. First of all, good morning. Chris Alexander, thanks so much, man. A lot of fun working on that plugin. It was a very, very late night. All right, let's check in here. Sonia, good morning. That is not a JC120. That is the Joe Satriani Limited Edition Tonex pedal. Good morning or good evening, Melissa Doppler. Thanks for joining us. Sonny, what's happening, my man? I feel good. All right. There we go. No, that's not the JC120. Charles, what's happening? All right, the caffeine's starting to kick in. All right, good coffee. Praxa, what's happening, my man? My mic is all messed up. Hang on a second. Let me check that. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. We should be good. Testing 1 2. Mic looks like it's good, but that's never always the greatest thing. Feedback is good. All right. The new Kramers are absolutely crazy. Hang on a second here. First of all, hang on. Let's go down those. First of all, good morning, everybody. Hello. Oh my word! Look at all these people. Hey. All right, let me get to work here. All right. I'm something. Yes, these new Kramers are really fabulous. I have been spending a lot of time with this. Craig Rosen, good morning. Griffin Gaines this morning. It's great to see you, Craig. Hello, Griffin. The shred is strong. There's something. I'm going to bring my overall volume down here. So, you know what we're doing today? My favorite type of Saturday morning. I have absolutely no idea. So here's the deal. Lots of stuff going on. I'm going to go down the roll call here in just a minute. Oh, my word, Andy Martin. Hold on, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and say hello to you. Great to see you, my man. So I have been really busy. Finally got this JC120 plugin out the door this morning. It was pretty much about an hour and a half worth of sleep. So you never have any idea kind of what's going to happen this morning, but it's going to be fun. I will be taking your questions, of course, because I'm here to protect and to serve, or whatever the heck that is. Let's see here. There we go. Chris Alexander, I really like my Tonex. Boy, are we going to have some fun today. All right, Song Moinster, what's going on? Freaking awesome. Top of the morning. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, this guitar and I have bonded. All right, let me just make sure I've got everybody. Jonathan Jenkins, my dear friend. Hello. All right. Yes, those Metal Grill cabinets. Hopefully there will be one here sooner than later. Those are the original OG guys here. Good. All right, good. Thank you very much for the feedback. I appreciate it. Brooks Lundy. All right, I better get to work here. Okay. Got better over time. Might have been YouTube. No. The feedback is always appreciated. Please don't apologize. Let me know. All right. We're going to start right off. I'm going to jump back at Terry Doris. Good morning. Hello. Dr. Phil. Hello. All right. Good morning, Dougie. Hold on. I can click that. There we go. Oh, John Mel Alba. Holy cow. I better earn my take-home pay. All right. So Chris's questions, I gotta love this guy because he is just so incredibly faithful on so many different things, and I'm so grateful. So let's raise him up. Everybody, let's give a big hand to Chris here because gosh darn it, he makes my life a better place pretty much all the time. All right, so he always sends through some questions, and much of the time I get to them, and some of the times I don't. One of the things he was asking about, how does someone know when they need a buffer when building a board, and where should it be placed? It's such a great question, and there are some pieces of gear that kind of fall into the mystery bucket. Over to my left here is a collection of compressor pedals, and so the great thing is that if you get a chance, watch this Roland JC120 plugin. A lot of heart and soul went into that. The Roland people have been so good to me over the years, and it's such an important part. Rick, good morning, my friend, of my personal music history that I really kind of went all out on this video. It's like 15 minutes long, lots of tones, and with this plugin. And if you know about the JC120, it's just a fabulous piece of gear. The great news is now that's in the rear view mirror. The next thing up is going to be in the mix of things, a Badlander video across the range of various Badlander offerings. And also there's going to be some groovy gadget stuff, crazy little pieces of gear. We will invariably be having this little piece of thing. No, it is not some little Pac-Man type of a deal. This is Sonia's little contraption. It's called a Fulcrum and is a multi-axis controller, and it is flipping awesome. The other thing that we're going to be doing is some of the stuff, and you guys named it OG gear. So this was literally, one of the very first pedals I ever got. Joe Satriani was using one of these when I was studying with him, and so I found one at Subway Guitars, and I picked this up at the latest 1980, maybe closer to 1979. And so this OG gear stuff, and the groovy gadgets and all this stuff, things that we want to be able to kind of take a deeper dive on together. And so the YouTube thing is about to kind of really kind of get full blown, and I really appreciate all the people that shared all the love about this message. I finally crossed 5,000 subscribers. For some people that sounds like a little, and for some people it's a huge deal, because I spent a lot of time doing a lot of content for a lot of other folks, and finally to kind of spend time kind of going, all right, I'm going to build this thing, and to get so much heartfelt enthusiasm and all the signups, the subscriptions, it was a big deal to me. So as it relates to this whole buffer thing, buffers, like compressors, fall into this slightly kind of like, when and where do I need one, and what exactly do they do? And the short version is that your guitar, when it makes a run through a cable, after about 15 to 18 feet, the ability for that signal to be unadulterated and to not starting having the high-end drop-off is one of the things. So there are a couple of different places. If you're just looking for the simple answer to that question, generally speaking, at the beginning of your pedal board is one of the good places to have a buffer. Another good place is to have one at the very end, because potentially that's making some long run all the way over to the amplifier. The other thing is an effects loop is another great place to potentially have one. The boogie effects loops are buffered, and what it means is that you can, for example, have some cables heading out to your pedal board where you've got, it used to be back in the day, if you wanted some fancy pants delay, you would have it in a rack, and it would sit back there on the back line. But now you've got all these amazing pieces of new technology. Looking for something close at hand. There we go. I can roll on over here, and I can grab said Strymon pedal. This is, studio quality delay in a box this big. Well, you're probably not going to be inclined to leave it on the back line. So now all of a sudden, you've got this run that's heading from your back line down to the stage. And so that's where a buffered effects loop actually really matters. The ability to take those long runs and keep them pristine and not have them drop off, the buffers are a really great vehicle for that. Now, if you were to ask me specifically what a buffer does, I could not tell you. In terms of, like a compressor, what I've kind of endeavored to do is like, okay, attack and release time on a compressor. The attack is how quickly the compressor grabs it. Release is how quickly or slowly it lets go of that. The ratio is how much compression it actually is squishing things with. And then you have a blend on some of these compressors that say, all right, well, I am going to let some of the uncompressed signal through, and I'm also going to then mix in how much of the compressed signal is. And then a number of them have a tone control. And generally speaking, those are the endeavors you kind of deal with in the midst of that. Most buffers pretty much don't have any control. They just kind of buffer. But they are an integral part of making sure your lines are long, and if they need to be, you're able to keep your signal pristine. And this is an integral part, especially if you're playing on a stage where you've got to actually keep this. Eric Beard, I was thinking about you not that long ago. How are you, my man? Good to see you. All right. Good. What a great question. All right, so I'm going to put Chris's questions over here on the other monitor because we're not done there. But part of today was by not having a scripted plan, I'm like, you know what? I think it's going to be a really cool show because, first of all, it means that I have no idea what's going to happen, and I like that. So Griffin's question was, is it better to start? Let me read it verbatim. Let me bring it on here. Is it harder to write a song or a great riff? The idea of a song, intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, maybe a separate solo section, and then you've got some orchestration of them. So the tools of, if you're going to be baking a lasagna, you got your pasta, you got your meat, you've got all the ingredients that go into baking a song. A riff, on the other hand, as a matter of fact, gosh, I really wish I had the minor pentatonic here. Hang on just a second. Let me see if I've got this here. And if I don't, we're going to combine a little bit of theory here, and I'm going to send each one of you off into your Saturday with a little mission, because I love this. Pentatonic patterns are not hiding on an overlay that I see easily there. All right, so here's the deal. The E minor pentatonic scale, if you just took the open strings of E, A, D, G, B, and E, you basically have an E. Let me bring my input down here. Oh, I can do that from here. You've got an E, G, A, B, D, E, G, A, E, B, D, E, G, G, E, D, B, A, G, E, D, B, A, G, E. And if you basically took that same group of notes, instead of starting off of E, you started off of A, you'd have A, B, D, E, G, A. And if we... So if you were to take your first and third fingers, let me not get that one in the mix here, and place them at the 5th and 7th frets on the bottom 3 strings. And just basically you've got the open E, A, and D strings. You can do some hammer-on-y, pulley stuff there. I was basically going open, 5th, 7, 7, 5th open. And as that little riff goes there, and I will jump around a little bit today, I'm going up, down, up, down, up, 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 down. Now I flipped around. All right, now that little spot there, however, in addition to kind of doing that kind of groovy stuff, which is certainly fun, I want you to have fun today. That is the #1 place that is super easy to write great riffs. And, what you might do is just get a little drum machine. Now, what I did there, that guy right there, I'm just taking that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, 6th note, and I'm sliding up. That's pattern number 3. This is pattern number 1, number 2, number 3. And I'm just sliding into pattern number 4. And it gives us a little bit of extra leeway to go. If you need to go a little higher there, but that. So that little spot there is just ripe with riffs. And you might have heard a few of these. And it's just so great because you have the octave right there. You got your flat 7, your 1, and your flat 3. There's your 4 and your 5. And it gives you kind of all the tools and I added that 5, flat 5, 4, flat 3. And that spot there, you can just hang out all day long. And again, if you can get some sort of little drum beat, a joom, joom, ba, joom. Now, the other thing for those of us that want to write riffs around other ways to apply the pentatonic, this is a different type of pentatonic box. So if you were to move to the key of A and take that A minor pentatonic and then move down to the pattern below it, which is pattern number 5, as I would describe that, but it's all a bunch of A, C, D, E, G, A's. And this is G, A, C, D, E, G. So if you just took this little bit here, the bottom 3 strings there, you've got this little box right here. And you've got a million riffs. Did you need to play his power chords? And you can just rock out on that. And what's great about that little box is you can take it, that is for A there, but we can flip it around. And play that same type of a box. The notes are going to fall a little bit different. This is a 1, flat 7, flat 3, 4. This is going to be a 1, flat 7, 4, 5. But we're taking these little boxes, and those are really cool to just kind of move stuff around. So out of that, there you can also, instead of playing the power chords, you can also then play single notes. And the great thing about starting with a single note is you can build on top of it. If you're starting with the most intense thing, sometimes it's hard to kind of make it do more, but all that to say, the pentatonic is a great place to come up with riffs from. And again, if we're in A, these little spots on the bottom couple of strings are great. All right, let me jump back in here. There we go. There we go. Riffs are much easier, actually. I would agree. So the interesting thing about, if you think about a lot of songs, they've got a chord pattern, maybe an arpeggiated thing, but it's not as much of a riff. So because the cool thing about a riff is it's basically like a hook that happens kind of in addition to whatever the vocal melody hook is on the chorus, right? And so it gives you the ability to give a counterpoint in the framework of an arrangement for the vocals to do their thing. And, imagine somebody singing the entire flipping song. You're like, all right, dude, give it a rest, right? And the same way you don't want the solo to happen the entire song. So you're looking to find this balance between the two. Which is good. So, Shane, good morning, my friend. Hello. Dan, what's going on? I'm late, but I'm here. You are. Johnny Bean, what's happening? Santa Cruzian. Hang on a second. There's two Johnny Beans here. I love that. You're changing it up. Oh, you got the Facebook and the... and the Instagram. James Ford, hello, my friend. Great to see you. Hello. All right. There we go. All right, hang on a second here. So, Doug for president. That's pretty funny. All right, so let me get back to this. Some pedals run either a 9 or 18 volt power supply. On those pedals, do you prefer to run at the highest voltage? It's a really great question. There are some of these things, that there's an instruction manual for some things, and there's a lot of stuff you're kind of like, I don't know. And you go out onto YouTube and you're like, gosh, I didn't find out a better answer. The short answer is this, there are a couple of solo Dallas pedals that are here. Some are 9 volts, some are 18 volts. Pedals that are designed to run at 18 volts have the ability to utilize that extra voltage to have greater headroom. That is to say, if you think about a 100 watt amp versus a 50 watt amp, it's not just that it can potentially get louder, it's that you can have a cleaner sound at potentially a higher volume before the amp, and the power amp tubes start to kind of go, whoa, I'm going to begin to provide some power amp overdrive. And in so doing, the ability to have that headroom means that the pedal can operate a little bit more efficiently. And it's a funny thing, if you think about distortion, if I turn the guitar all the way, when I have the maximum amount of gain, in many ways I have the least amount of stuff to work with versus... when the gain's a little bit lower. Because I can play a little quieter. And I can dig in a little bit. I think I need to come up a little bit here for me. But once you're all the way up with that much gain, you kind of have a lot less options, and it's a lot less touch sensitive. That is to say that headroom, where you've got more clean range to work with if you're so inclined, is really valuable. And so generally, in my experience, pedals that have an 18 volt power rating generally have a little bit more dynamic range to them. And so part of the way they get that dynamic range is they have that extra headroom within which to work. It's a great question. I'm going to need to find a couple of pedals that are a great example of this. You got another question on here that I love about a jumper pedal or a cable. Rather than cabling two pedals together with your kind of traditional cable, sometimes you see these little brass it's a round thing with two plugs on either side coming out. I've never been necessarily a giant fan of those for this reason. I don't know, and those of you that are pedal boarders out there, feel free to jump in. Traditionally, when I go to put together a pedal board, it always seems like there's one cable that is not quite long enough or is too long, and it's just like you're always kind of, unless you're custom cutting your own cables for a board, And the deal is the challenge with those is that although they're circular, so ideally they kind of have a rotating quality, right? But it's presuming that the plugs on the two cables are going to be close enough together that you can use that, right? And it's presuming that the adjacent pedals will always line up. Now, the problem with that, I don't know, is when you got a pedal where the jacks are there and you got a pedal where the jacks are there, got a little bit of a problem, right? Houston, and so in so doing, we have a little bit of a challenge going on there. Hang on a second. All right, just picked up a new compressor. Oh, awesome! So this is the other thing. I'm going to jump in on something here, and Chris, I'm going to come back to your question. So one could argue, what's the most important pedal in your signal chain? And John and I had this conversation last week. We aren't going to mention any names, and we were kind of walking through his signal chain on his board. I was like, wait, what's that first pedal? No names, and we both kind of agreed that maybe that pedal was a little bit suspect to everything. Now, here's the thing: is again, I'm going to reiterate this, and I may say this from time to time. We don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion, but that doesn't mean that I can't talk about, hey, there are people that play at church because it's a place. We're not going to get into the nuance of, I don't want people, there's enough of that going on outside of the world. However, so John, I can fairly safely say, I think we'll be okay with my saying he plays at church. The worship guys, a lot of them, the compressor is an always on pedal. It's actually a really, really, really important part of the signal chain that almost always comes first. And so everything after that pedal is either sounding markedly better or potentially markedly worse. So if you've got a not great first pedal, maybe it's time to kind of go, is that the problem? The other thing is just with pedals in general, I would strongly suggest, if it's relatively easy to do, to audition every single pedal, your guitar, that pedal, and your amp. And just really begin to understand, bypass it, run your cable straight into the amp, run back into the pedal with it bypassed, and turn it on, and just listen for any changes, right? Is there? And the other thing that you could do that would have a similar effect would be to use an AB box. One of the outputs of your AB box goes, you'd have to have a combiner to do that. Well, if you got two amps that are identical, that's your workaround. One goes straight into the one amp, and you set them the same. The other goes into your pedal board and out into the other amp, set the same. And then, just kind of begin to audition the pedals one by one and just kind of go, is there a tone sucker on there, right? Because sometimes you're going to find that for better, for worse, certain pedals suck tone. Now, the deal is that I remember being on a tour, a small tour in Canada, and I knew that I was going to be backline. A JCM 800, not my favorite amplifier. They're a little harsh on the top end for my taste. But I purposely knew what amp I was going to have on the back line. I wanted a JVM, and I knew it wasn't available, which is fine. So I purposely brought a pedal that I knew took some of the top end off and had that in my signal chain the entire time, specifically to roll some of the top end off and starve the amplifier of some of that input so it couldn't overproduce the top end, which for me, the JCM 800, is just a little harsh in the top end. That's just my taste, that's all. But the point, it's got this kind of thing going on. I'm like, whoa. So the idea of there will be times that actually a tone suck is actually something you kind of, let me put that in there. So I'm not going to name the specific pedal because people might misunderstand that use point. But in any case, all right. Johnny Bean, I hope you're doing great. I see you all over these great guitar threads all the time. I trust you are having an amazing life down in Santa Cruz. How is Pizza My Heart, by the way? All right. Good. All right, let me just make sure I haven't missed anything here. I always go with the highest voltage option. There you go. Hey, Craig, so what have you got that are high voltage pedals? What do you have? As I recall, probably the oldest kind of 9 or 18 volt one is the OCD from Fulltone. Obviously, that company's no longer in business, but that was one of the super popular pedals for a long time on a lot of people's board. Kind of, if you will, the flavor of the month dealio. Oh, so hey, Dan, did you buy one? So what he's talking about is the 50-watt Badlander combos at Guitar Center. Without going into the nuance of the detail, because there's nuance to the detail, they're having this crazy price. I don't know if it's still there, but it's basically, I think it's $13.99 for a 50-watt Badlander combos. They're not in screen, but there's one, and there's the other one's hiding here. It's gone camera shy. The idea that, oh, you did? Oh, heck yeah. All right, so dude, do me a favor. Way to go. If you get a moment, put together a list, shoot me an email with all the things you might want to know about that, because in the next 7 days of my life, I'm going to take a deep dive into Badlanderville. And so I'm going to be doing a video on the Badlander series, the Badlander 25. The head is right there. I can actually see it. My Badlander 50 combos, they sold out. Oh, my word. Okay. And then I've got the pair of combos, which are great in stereo, but one is great. Congratulations, a steal of a deal. I think that price is as good. One of mine I got at artist pricing, and I think that price, without revealing the specific details, was as good or better than artist pricing, which is really killer. And then there's also going to be a Badlander 100. So all three of the flavors that are in there, and with that, it gets back to this conversation about headroom. And the other side conversation, oh, that's great, is, I have gone on this mad cabinet kick because, this is one of the interesting things, and why your questions and your feedback and your thoughts, and Chris, you're just a gem. I have my own questions about my own gear situations, right? Like I'm kind of going, all right, I've actually learned my back left and back right JC120 for years, and that's a stereo amp, and generally speaking, doesn't sound great to collapse it to mono. It's not designed to do it. That is a JC50. And that is a mono amplifier because it's only got one speaker, but they managed on that particular amp to get the stereo chorus that's in that amp, that same circuit in mono, but make it sound good. So the point being is that amplifier, I literally drove all the way up to Sacramento to try it out, to see if it worked, knowing that I'm in basically just 30 minutes east of San Francisco. So it's basically a 3 or 4 hour endeavor from start to finish to kind of go, I don't know, I'm going to find out. Literally, it was a tone quest, and it actually sounds great. So, we're kind of trying to work some of these things out, and sometimes YouTube is just not a place to do it. So I love having people's input. Lance, dude, I owe you a phone call. I am so sorry, my dear friend. Cringe. Shaming, flatulating. I love you dearly. Life is a little busy, but not too busy for you this week, you and me. So here's the thing: is that the reality is that when you see. Anytime, without going into specifics of this, anytime you, for example, at Sweetwater, is a good example. You see kind of like, oh, the price just went down by $100. That's usually kind of a tell that something is going on around that. And sometimes, if it's, for example, they recently came out with the new edition of kind of the updated, come here, let go, there we go, Big Sky. Now, Timeline, the iconic, Strymon delay, has not gotten an update yet. And you're kind of going, that's the foot tapping, by the way. It's only a matter of time before that's going to get refreshed, and there's going to be a new... They've come out with other delays, but the Timeline is really an iconic delay. So the fact that they've done the Big Sky, it's a matter of time, I think, before they come out with the updated version of the Timeline. So when you start seeing that price drop on something that's been in the marketplace for a while, you kind of go, okay, that's about the time, right? And so the thing about... If I were a manufacturer, there's this phrase, planned obsolescence. And the idea is that you retire a SKU so you can add a new SKU. Because guess what? If Dan has his Badlander combo, he doesn't need to buy another boogie, potentially. Well, unless you've got boogie-itis. But if you retire that and you come out with a 90s dual rec reissue, all of a sudden people go, I must have that amp. and then you come up with a Mark II C+. I must have that amp. So the idea is that planned obsolescence. And the other thing is there's a certain amount of what I'll call componentry. It's like, you have different amps, they're going to have nuanced differences. Sometimes there's different output transformers. There are other parts that they kind of get cobbled together to make that amp. So sometimes, you've got parts and you're like, hey, let's get these amps out of here. And sometimes it's a matter of you have inventory that, for example, there was this thing called COVID. You might have heard about it. Where, there was supply chain issues, but the other part of it was there was a getting stuff to retail. So Badlander, unfortunately, was born right in the middle of COVID. And so it's actually a phenomenal amp. I've used it a ton on both the vocal and instrumental albums that I'm working on. It's my go-to amplifier. However, its launch was challenged because it kind of happened in the middle of COVID. So, great questions. All right. Albert. Okay, there we go. So, this is the other thing that's kind of interesting is that I am, thank you for the reminder there. Wisdom is, you following through is wisdom. Always a pleasure, my friend. So, the idea is that I stumbled across Reverb's best-selling cabinet list. And I was really... Hold on. I can find this. Give me a moment. And I was... so do me a favor. If you guys are feeling endeavorous, do me a favor and... I love this. Howdy, I'm Julia. I want to inform you about a new employment that might catch your interest. Do you have time for a chat? No. I'm sure she's got employment on her mind. So here's the deal. Let me find this link because I want to share this with you because this is really, I'd love it if you guys, yes, let's nerd out. I would love it if anybody, if you dare, to list one of the top 5 selling cabinets on Reverb without going there, because I'm kind of curious to see, because it was a surprise to me. I did not get what I expected on that list, and it was very informative because as I kind of begin to try and take the temperature, as I start thinking about all these things, there we go, that are happening in the gear spaces, as kind of jumping back into the YouTube content creation side of things head first. I want to begin to understand what people who are buying and selling gear are thinking, because if I kind of do it from my own perspective, it can be really limiting. And most importantly, I said at the beginning of the show here something kind of silly, but to protect and to serve, Adam 512, right? The idea is that I spend enough time on Craigslist that I see the really stupid gear decisions that people make. And you kind of go, had I known you wouldn't have done that. And the idea is understanding other people's gear needs is part of the thing about being, in my opinion, a successful YouTuber, because it's not just chasing the trends, which is part of it. It's actually a huge part of it. But the real useful part where you're really serving people is helping them understand the things like, I don't know, what does a compressor really do? What are the things that I really need on a compressor? And do I think I need them, or do I really need them? Or, do I really need to go out and buy virtually every boogie cabinet that's out there? So in so doing, Cali Fortune, I love that. Oh, nice. There you go. So for those of you who don't remember the Seymour Duncan convertible amps, first of all, there's a great photo of Jeff Beck and Seymour out in the Mojave Desert or somewhere with, kind of a Model T, and they've got one of those convertible amps. That's awesome. Deluxe Reverb, there we go. All right, so AC30. So this is what's crazy. Marshall 1968. Chris, you guys are totally in my universe. Now, this is what really blew my mind. Boogie-itis and Marshall-itis for me. I need some of the bad medicine Bon Jovi was talking about. All right, so let me share this. Okay, there we go. Let's see if I can do this without breaking anything. I've got to unlock this thing. All right, I protected To protect and serve, I protected myself from doing something silly. So let me unlock this scene. There we go. All right, so check this out. This is what blew my mind. That's not how I want to do this. I want to go to Chrome, Google, begins with a G. There we go. And we're looking for there. Take a look at that. I completely got that wrong. So at the number one on the list there is the orange PPC 112. That's a closed back 112. Then you've got the Fender FR10 and then the FR12. Those are 10 and 12 inch speakers respectively. Then you've got the orange PPC, I think it's 108 is the model, and that's an 8-inch speaker that went with the Micro Terror. And below that, you've got the Headrush 10. I believe if I scroll here, and I think I need to do it from here, I think I'm going to get to the 12. So the crazy thing is, literally, those cabinets have stayed totally consistent for weeks. I keep kind of checking back in. So the fact that the number one best-selling cabinet on Reverb, and I'm going to go so far as to say Sweetwater moves an awful lot of volume. Guitar Center moves some volume. But I would go so far as to say they probably sell more cabinets at Reverb a day than anybody. And if not, let's ignore Thomann in Europe for right now, because again, I'm in the States, so I can't speak to the European side of it. I'm sure that it's a little bit different there. But the point being is those, first of all, speak to how much people are embracing this. So what was that? 3 of the 5 best selling cabinets in America are FR cabinets. Didn't see that coming. Like, seriously? Not only that, how do I say this? I think all the people that I knew that were at Headrush aren't there now. One of the people that I knew at Headrush is at IK, which is kind of an interesting thing. But the fact that, first of all, Fender, by the way, I have a new thing that arrived the other day. I didn't get a chance to post it. I've got one of the IK Tonex cabs. I can't wait to plug it. It's actually just sitting in the box upstairs. Really excited to get in it and mess with that. The Tonex stuff, price point is phenomenal. But the fact that FR, by the way, in case you don't know, I'm sorry. So for those of us that are a little bit long in the tooth, as they would say, we grew up with tube amps, solid state amps. I can see a Randall over there. I can actually see 3 Randalls over there. I can see 2 JC 120s. I don't have a problem with solid state, nor does Metallica or the Police or Joe Satriani. Everything has its place, and it's just knowing when and where that's going to be, right? But the idea of these big cabinets, and I would have been fairly sure, Chris, that a 1968 Marshall cabinet would have been on there. But one, that grouping is telling me how big a market share people who have a modeler and want to make it loud, whether it's in their bedroom, whether it's at rehearsal, whether it's on the gig, how giant that audience is. And it was a giant, like, dude, where you been? And, in many ways, modeling is to traditional amplifiers is what solid state amps were to tube amps. It's like, it's kind of new, the dyed and the wool tube amp fanatics were like, oh, solid state, but the Randall stuff was great. The JC 120 stuff is great. Just because it's not a tube amp doesn't mean it's not awesome. I was actually a big fan of the Marshall valve states. That was a tube preamp and a solid state power amp. My biggest complaint about my Marshall JVM is when you turn it up to volume, you don't have enough headroom in the power amp section. And when you start playing in a really loud situation, you start turning the amp up, the power amp starts to overdrive in a way that you need more volume, and the amp just gets more distorted because you've got a distorted preamp section, and the power amp section is then beginning to overdrive as well. And all it's doing is producing mud instead of volume. Not a good thing. So that's the thing that I loved about the valve state, is because it's a solid state power amp section, you've got all that bandwidth. And with these FR devices, they are the vast majority of them, I need to double check, but almost undoubtedly Class D power, which is very clean, very loud. Turn it up, turn it down, it doesn't really change the character. But I was shocked to see how much of that market was the FRFR. But again, hang on, let me make sure I didn't miss any cool comments, because that just blew my mind. So here's the real question is, are they moving to modelers, or are they also getting modelers, right? It's an interesting dynamic, is that, the convenience of being able to take this little guy. I'm waiting from my friends at IK. I have a request for them to send me 2 more. I'm going to build a little mini IK pedal board with 3 pedals. One that's going to be basically, you can, in if you will, in stomp mode, you can toggle either pedal on or off, or you can toggle between 2 different stomps. And so that is to say, using it for your overdrive and your distortion. The next one as the amp pedal, and the next one as the effects pedal. So you're doing separate things with those 3 little pedals, but it's a very cute little pedal board that you have this ability to do some rather sophisticated stuff. And the last pedal in the chain, those pedals, the effects are stereo, with the exception of the drive types of stuff. So you can literally go mono into the third pedal and stereo out of the last one for your time-based effects, for some sort of ping-pong type of effect. Like, by the way, in case anybody doesn't know what the phrase ping-pong means, let's see, where is my ping-pongadry? Are you ping-ponging? You should be. Hang on. There you go. So as I bring that up, now, let me turn the reverb off real quick. The reason ping pong is cool is it allows the delays to be on the far left and far right with the guitar. I've got that hotter than I want it to be, but I wanted to demonstrate that. And so you kind of have this, if you will, 3-dimensionality. I'm going to try not to point this finger at you in the classic sense. The guitar, if I mute the delay here, really is basically center field there. And I have a little peripheral reverb still on. But when I add this, now what I've done is I've kind of cloaked it in the delays. And that really kind of allows you to have, again, this 3-dimensional sort of a sound where you're manipulating the stereo field, versus when you try and put the delay and the direct signal of the guitar in just normal mode. Now, the delay is going to be in the center. I'm going to go back to ping pong. It gives you that extra space to be able to keep the delay at a louder level, but it's not traveling in the same lane as the direct signal. So for me, that's one of the reasons the stereo setup is really something that I've really gotten, in many ways, dependent upon, but very useful. Oh, Craig, you got a different icon. I have a warehouse full of tubes. Oh, so let me offer everybody some advice. Tubes are like crack. Once you start, it's really hard to stop. So right behind me is a Badlander 50. Is a TC50, the Triple Crown. So I recently picked that up, my buddy Albert. Thank you very much. That amp is one of the most important amps in my world. I'm in the process of actually getting into hightail mode to finish both a vocal and instrumental album. Rhythm guitar tone is vital having a great rhythm guitar tone, because everything else is kind of built on top of. You could have the best solo tone, but if your rhythm tone sucks, it's like building a house on sand. It's just going to wash away. It's not a good thing. So when I went over there, the guy, and he's actually a friend. It turns out I knew this guy. He had me test the amp with some very fancy tubes in it. And he said, well, okay, well, I have the, boogie tubes are great, but those were basically NOS, new old stock, these kind of fancy pants. I think they're German or Polish or Russian tubes. I forget exactly what's in there, but they have a certain magic, and the boogie tubes are great. I swear by boogie tubes. All my amps, if it's a boogie tubes go in there. However, he kind of like he baited the hook, and they sounded so good in there. I was like, I love that sound. No, I'm going to spend the extra $100. I'll take it. And he gave me the boogie tubes as well. But the point being is, kind of once you kind of go, and you kind of take that first little breath, you're like, oh no. So if you can avoid going down the tube rabbit trail, and if you're a boogie person, just buy boogie tubes. They're great. However, having a warehouse full of tubes, holy cow! For those about to rock, I salute you. No. But the thing is that especially in this day and age, that's a great thing to have. All right. Okay. Okay. This is my favorite subject right now. The whole reason I went down this rabbit trail was I wanted to understand the threshold between what I do with cabinets and why I do it, the separation of what other people know, don't know, believe, don't believe, want to know, need to know, and kind of what is that threshold point? And so the interesting thing, and then there's this. So the Stephen, how are you, my friend? Radar to you. Look at that. That is so adorable. So the thing is that there are a number of nuances, and I had a really great experience that was a bad experience, but it was one of the best learning experiences ever. I think 2 or 3 gigs ago, there's a small kind of local bar that I play at. And the rehearsal for that, I think it was 3 times ago. The rehearsal was at the drummer's rehearsal space. And I brought a 112 mini recto cab and the 112 recto cab. So one's a little bit larger and deeper, and the other is not so much. And they sounded amazing in rehearsal. But when I got into the venue, which was about 4 or 5 times deeper and maybe 2 times-ish wider than the rehearsal space, with the drums and the bass, those cabinets did not have the ability to project. So the nuance of that is they were closed-back cabinets, which are generally, if you're playing higher gain stuff, is kind of what you're looking for. If you're looking to, per your question there, you maybe play blues. This is where you want the open back cabinet, because not only is it breathing out of the back, so when you're on the bandstand, sound's reflecting off the back wall. That is, say the drummer hits their drums, those bounce off the back wall and they come back at you. The same thing's going to happen with the sound coming out of the back of your tube amp. You're going to get a filtered or a diffused version of that, but that sound is floating around the stage. It's actually one of the really pleasant things about playing with an open back cabinet is you really have this great surrounded by the sound. And we had this kind of funny conversation last time about pickups, and I was mentioning there's a venue I played at called The Edge, and I opened for George Lynch there. It was Dawkin. And I remember, and Jimmy Arsenault, the talent buyer that set me up with that gig, who provided so much great experience on a live stage that has stayed with me. Every time I learned so much there. But there was a thing I would play, and I could feel the pickup gently vibrating under the strings. It was because of how loud the guitar was front of house, but how well mixed it was. Like when it's really like woofy and poopy, you can feel the pickup go. And you can feel that underneath the strings, but I could tell it was tuned and all of that. So the way the sound surrounds you when on stage is a really, really big deal. And so with a closed back cabinet, whether it's a 412, 112, or 212, the sound is very directional. If you're playing high gain music where you really want that ch-ch-ch-ch thing, does it chug? You want that closed back severe projection thing. If you're using stuff that is alternative potentially, where you've got some jangle going on, or you really fall into the jangle thing, that open back creates that openness, hence open back, right? So first of all, the determining factors, because I've gone down a little bit of a rabbit trail with this, is number one, what's the size of the venue you rehearse in? Do you rehearse in a venue, or are you in your bedroom, which is totally legit, because a lot of people are like, hey, I do this on the weekends. I got other stuff to do during the week. Family, kids, coffee, you know. If you are planning on joining a band, what kind of band is it? How big might the rehearsal space you're in? And how big are the venues you're going to play? Because those things ultimately all play a role in the size of the cabinet that you're looking for. So I have, and it just arrived yesterday, so I have the mini rectifier slant, the mini rectifier straight, which is one of the top selling cabinets at Sweetwater. So I was like, okay, I need to, and actually if I scroll that list, that will, hang on, let me go back here. So this is the other thing about this discovery process that should take me back to, there we go. As I scroll down this list, let me get over to here. The first boogie cabinet you're going to see should be, by the way, there's a Line 6 power cab. Look at this. All right. And there's the Orange PP. First of all, Orange is selling the pants out of their cabinets. So that's the Line 6 power cab. It's a great cabinet, by the way. PPC 212. That is not the PPC 212 OB. That will, actually, the funny thing is, that is a photo of a PPC 212 OB where the speakers are set diagonally, but well, hang on. No. All right, I'm wrong. And I'm okay with being wrong. All right, so in my world of hanging out with Boogie for so long, that looks like what I thought was the OB. So that is a closed back cabinet. Hopefully you're, hang on, let me, is my mouse visible? No. Yes, no, maybe. Hold on, let me move this real quick. There we go. I'll be able to tell if my mouse is visible now. Yeah, okay, good. My mouse is visible. Okay, so this guy, the Boogie cabinets are wider. There you go. So if you take a look at this cabinet, its closed back cabinet is wider than this. So the oranges are just a little bit closer together. I think this photo may be compacted. In any case, the orange open back cabinet, that's a PPC 212 OB. Those are mounted diagonally. They're offset. And it's actually kind of cool, and that's open back. So, okay, so my correction. So the 212 rectifier horizontal cabinet is globally the best-selling Boogie cabinet, as I understand. But the next one that we're going to get in Boogie World is probably going to be the rectifier. There it is. Oh, okay. So no. Okay. So this has changed a little bit. So this is the cabinet that I think the other day was higher up than this guy. So this guy is the one that literally just arrived yesterday from Sweetwater. And then this guy is kind of the rectifier standard cabinet is kind of the gold standard in Boogie cabinets. And they are just phenomenal. Probably the best sounding 412 cabinet on the market. All right. So all that to say, look at all, and then we'll finally get to the 1968, the kind of traditional Marshall 412, but literally that's 20 on the list down here, right? So the point being is we live in a world where people, first of all, for a range of reasons, are not buying. Hold on, let me get back over here. Thank you. Come on. Why am I not seeing my interface point? Come on. If you ever wanted to see the look of frustration on my face, that would be it. Why have I lost my ability to pick my camera? All right, I can fix this. Hang on. All right, let's do this. There we go. Come on. Oh, I get it. So my camera is completely just totally gone hiding, and my ability to pick my camera. Okay, hold on a second. I can fix this. Camera selector. There we go. So the we live in a 112 world. So I think it's because, first of all, people aren't trying to show how big their mojo is by the size of their cabinet or their rig. Number two, a 112 cabinet is easy to move around. It's great for bedroom. You can come home and your a romantic counterpart isn't going to potentially freak out because you're taking up half of filling the space room with this giant cabinet that you look at and you go, that only does loud, right? It's like when the teenage kid, the parents down the block decide to buy him a Mustang. You know this does not go well, right? So okay. So, in any case, all this to say, I see a couple of comments that I'm going to get to in just a moment. This is a great conversation, for me at least. The idea is that with the 212 cabinets, how much projection you want, what style you play. The other thing is the cabinets that I've got here, I started to say I've got both the mini rectifier cabinets. It turns out that on a recent gear trade, there are 112 rectifier cabinets. There's one that's basically square, and what I didn't really know was there's a wide body one. So I got that on a recent gear acquisition, a Trade of Marshall cabinet for that. And also as part of the trade, I got a wide body open back. And so the nuance around the different speakers that are in these and the way they project sound. And I had a conversation with Maddie, John Petrucci's tech, this week. And I was like, hey, which of the rectifier 112 cabinets do you use? Because the rectifier 112 cabinets are massive. And I would say, just for pisses and giggles, the 212 rectifier cabinet is great. But having two 112s means that you could potentially separate them. You could potentially just take one of them. It's not going to be less expensive than buying the 212. It's going to be more money. But this is one of the things I'm kind of going, well, why are people doing this? And I think people, they like to have, I think one of the reasons the mini rectifiers have done so well, which, by the way, they've been in production for over 10 years. So I start to look at stuff and kind of like, how long has this been there? It's like, wow. So people, I quantify, and I've become an Epiphone and Kramer junkie. There's an Epiphone over there, visible. No, but it's over there, but you can't see it. Actually, no. There's that ES guy right there is an Epiphone, and there's another one. I'm loving these guitars. They're super affordable. They're really well made. But for your average working Joe or Jenny, you can buy a couple for what you might spend on a Gibson custom shop. And so the thing about these smaller amps is you get the rectifier flavor. You don't necessarily need it to be stupidly loud with a giant 412 cabinet. So people are having the ability to buy these smaller rigs, and so they've got this particular one. They might have a Marshall one. They might have an orange one. I'm like, okay, I totally get that. And I actually, these little amps are so good. I love that. So Sonia, the JVM 410H. That is a JVM 410 HJS, which is it's actually one of Joe's amps. I'm not going to be lifting anything. So last week we had a terribly embarrassing accident. I figured out what happened. So basically, anybody who was here watched me drop the guts out of my vintage EP1 Echoplex, and I'd forgotten that the unit, when I got it, the screws that held the Echo into the box weren't there. And so I kind of leaned it forward. When I leaned it forward, there was just enough inertia that it kind of went and toppled out. It's mostly functional. I got to have my guy work on it. It was one of the most embarrassing moments in front of a room full of people that I've ever had. But I can laugh about it. So in any case, I'm not going to be pulling the Satriani amp down there, but I've got my JVM 410H is on loan to a local studio. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to get that back, and I'm going to A/B back and forth. But I can almost assure you, in opinion, that the power amp section on Joe's is going to be tighter and not be as susceptible to being able to break up at higher volumes. And, mind you, that particular experience I'm talking about was literally playing next to Joe and Paul Gilbert and maybe Marco Miniman on drums. or the other drummer at one of the guitar camps, and it's happened a couple of times that I would bring the JVM and an angled 412 before I started playing boogies, and to get where you needed that solo boost, I was like, it's just getting muddier, not louder. And I was like, okay, and you kind of have to have that happen once, and you kind of go, okay. Now, when I sat in with Joe and those guys at G3, I was playing through one of Joe's JVMs, and when it came time to solo at really because Kenny Aronoff, he plays hard. That's concert volume. Joe's amp didn't give the ghost in the way that mine does. So my guess is his power amp section is tuned specifically for concert volume. Go figure, right? Because he plays concerts in large venues. But these things do matter. It's one of the reasons I hear a mono delay. I'm curious, is that coming through left and right for you? Hey, Eric, what's going on, my man? Mike, okay, hey, what's going on, my man? Feedback, I used to have a Headrush FR212. Okay, right, the EV PXM 12, those are like 800 watts, you're a lunatic. And the Fender Tonemaster FR12, of those three, the EV set to full range, not the guitar cab, sounds the most natural. So those okay. So this is interesting. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, and I'm gonna try and keep an eye on the bottom, and I'm gonna scroll back up. Mike, if you're still here. Oh, Jimmy, hey, there we go. Come on. You must have heard me singing your praises, tickled your ears. So at the EV, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's an 800 watt cabinet. So this is the deal, is that we're talking about something that actually doesn't get talked about an awful lot, which is one of the things that, as I kind of do more on the groovy gadgets and talk about, specific pedals and the history of things and whatnot, distortion pedals basically imitate the sound of turning your preamp volume up and your master volume down and then bringing your master volume up. And that's distortion. Power amp overdrive is really about, typically it started in NMV, non-master volume amplifiers, and turning the volume way the heck up, and the power amp section starts to get this lovely overdrive. It's a beautiful thing. It's this warmth, it's this grease, but it's not this. It's not that. That doesn't happen in the power amp section. It can be augmented by what happens in the power amp section, but this is where the headroom really matters, and that's kind of going to be one of the things that, per this Badlander video series that I'm doing, I'm going to be really excited, and it will be, I have to kind of figure out how it will present, or it will just be the summary thereof, because I'm going to be picking up the Badlander 100 in the next couple of days. But my belief is, because it's got the two extra tubes, it's going to have, I'm not going to say twice the headroom, I'm going to say 2/3 the headroom will be my guess. And the idea, because if you make a high gain amp too efficient, it's not fun. It's too efficient. People want that. Does it, not only does it chug, but right? I mean, listen to the bloom on that. I'm at whisper volume. Literally, I can be talking. That's how loud the guitar is compared to my voice in the room. Actually, so no, you're hearing it direct. So, but I'm well, you could hear as my voice was talking, and I'm playing. Besides what's coming direct through my audio interface, I'm not super loud. So that distortion's a thing. But all right, did we get? Hold on, Ronnie North. Hey, what's going on, my man? Pleasure. Great to see you. I've missed you, my friend. I trust you're doing great. Ronnie's a great guitar player in the... Look at that shot, you rock star. Great guitar player in the Southern California area. Okay. Let me squeegee back up here. Okay, they aren't all guitar tubes. Okay, there we go. Hang on a second. So for those of you who don't know, I'm pretty sure the EV, basically it's a monitor. And as I recall, it's 800 watts. They are inconceivably loud, but because of the headroom, the sheer amount of power, you're not going to use that 800 watts for the most part. You're not going to be in a situation where you're going to need that much volume. But what you use is the headroom. And what he's talking about is the ability there to recreate the sound of your modeler efficiently. So very interesting. Yes, that is a Kramer. Micah, how are you, my friend? I've been really bonding with this guitar. No difference. Hold on a second. Oh, wait. Oh, interesting. Okay. Rafael, good morning. Hello. Buenos dias. That's right. Gosh darn it. How rude am I? Hold on. Let's get this settled straight here for a second. We got to do... Oh, wait a second. Let me make sure I'm not going to regret what I just did there. Well, we're going to do it without the graphic. Let's raise them up. But first, coffee. Let me know what it is that you're drinking this morning or evening. And where you are. Thanks for the heads up, Raphael. That's appreciated. Okay. THD cabinet, 212, 160 watts, 8 ohm cab can be daisy chained. So this is the other thing is that the idea of kind of managing impedance. Oh, my word. I'm popular. So the use of two 8 ohm cabinets means you're going to need to run those two cabinets in the two 4 ohm outputs on your boogie amplifier versus a 212 8 ohm cabinet. Wait for it. Goes on the one thing. So it's going to change. I need to do a test. Boy, I guess I shouldn't have left my notifications on. I can't really do anything about that, but that's okay. All right, so here's the deal. I have a test to do. I've got to find a way. I know how to do this. Okay, I'm going to try, and Sonia probably knows the answer to this. I'm going to hook up two rectifier 112 cabinets to the two 4 ohm outputs on one of my amps. And then I'm going to use cab clone IR coming out of that to capture the sound of that. Then I'm going to use one speaker cabinet and I'm going to use an 8 ohm cabinet and I'm going to do the exact same thing. And I'll use a looper on the front end, so I'm just getting the same signal. And I'd be very curious to see if the amp behaves any differently, because really two 8 ohm cabinets, your amp is going to need to run at 4 ohms, and one 8 ohm cabinet, your amp's going to run at 8 ohms. But in theory, there's going to be a noticeable difference between the sound. But until we actually try it, we don't actually know, right? It's like you unplug all the stuff and then you plug them and say, oh, really different. Like, oh, I can't hear the difference. It's not until you kind of get a chance to A/B things you can kind of go, all right. So that's where being able to document it, kind of go, what is different? So I love that. Flipping geeky. Sonia, since there is no U.S. tube manufacturer, as far as I know, these tubes for sure will go up in price. So that is let's see if I can dance up to the edge of that. This whole tube thing has been a very interesting thing for quite some time, right? So yes, my guess is tubes are going to go up in price, but it also depends. The short version is there are going to be countries that are going to kind of move stuff around to import from other countries where they're going to try and hide the country of origin of stuff. I think it's going to be a very interesting time financially. Well, that's as far as I'm going to get close to that. There we go. Come on. There you go. That's how you do it. I got to tell you, I spent a lot of time wasting a lot of time. There you go. So, oh boy, there's a political hot potato right there. Steve, what's going on, my man? Great to see you. Always a pleasure. The last place that made tubes mostly on a custom basis for the military finally closed 10 years or so ago. Yes, they're gonna go up in price, and I'm sure there are people hoarding them right now. So yes, so the Mesa wide body 112. And so the funny thing is, so correct me if I'm wrong. You sent me a picture of that. It's so funny, like there are all these people out there in the world. They kind of send slightly risque pictures of themselves to one another. Gear fanatics send pictures of their cabinets to one another. I gotta love that. Oh, let me show you the backside of my cabinet. Look at the backside. hot. So so the funny thing is that, boogie people. To the best of my knowledge, I discovered something in my world travels that blew my mind. The rectifier traditional cabinet, I'm pretty sure, came into the world as the stiletto cabinet. I found an old catalog. It's got all the rectifier stuff and the big cabinet. So the oversized Recto 412 cabinet is in there. And on the other side of, if you will, the gatefold page there are all the stilettos. And that's where they actually use the word traditional. So I need to do a little bit of more research. But as I understand, because I'm looking at this, I'm like, they're really describing the one as standard, and the other is traditional. So that's where that nomenclature was born. And it kind of makes sense that when they got rid of the stiletto line, they were like, these cabinets are really cool. That got absorbed into the rectifier line. But I thought that was fascinating. Okay. And the law of supply and demand, absolutely. Good. Come on. Hopefully a good heavy work day. Always a pleasure, my friend. Sorry I missed you on the entry. And yes, that's the thing is that. But again, the one experience that I had on that one gig when I got there, and I was like, wow, these two 112s were great in rehearsal. It was perfect. I was so excited because I'd planned to take my 412 or both my 412 cabinets to the gig, and I was like, oh no, this is going to be great. And I got to the gig and my guitar just disappeared. I'm like, moron. But that was the part of the learning thing. You kind of go, oh, I like learning those lessons, because okay, because I could tell it didn't have the projection. And that's really whoever it was that asked about the 212. The great thing about the Boogie closed back 212 cabinets is they have a huge amount of projection, and they're really thunderous. They're great. Echoplex down. Oh, that is funny. Oh, my word. My favorite guitars are American Special Strat and my Les Paul Studio, and I have a couple that I play. Oh, there we go. Cheaper once more. So, it's. I take it that was when I was talking about the whole Epiphone thing. It's kind of like I've got. I'm gun shy after dropping the Echoplex last week. I've got the Marty Schwartz Epiphone, and I'm loving that guitar. It's flipping sounds great. Oh, no, Oh, by the way, I'm going to find the hack for it. I don't have it yet, but I did my weekly or once a month, first Wednesday of the month acoustic gig on Wednesday, and I come back. I pull my my guitar stands out of the car, and sure enough, one of the little wrappy things around the whatever you call the thing that the neck is held by, the little wrapper thing has come off, and I've actually scratched the back of one of my necks, putting it into a stand that didn't have the little wrappy thing on it. So I'm going to find some sort of hack. And I'm always very careful about where I use tape, because the adhesive has a tendency to just, especially if you're going someplace where it's hot, be trouble. I think I'm going to try and find maybe some of that medical tubing, but the idea is you make put some sort of sheath around the necky thing, such that the little outside piece can't come off. So, because I'm like, and I've had it happen where it came off, but it was in my van. This time I gave a good look at the van. I'm like, ugh. And it's so, and if you ever have that happen, just be forewarned, it's really easy if you're just kind of not thinking about it to go bang, and the corners on those guitar stands, they will put a nice little dent in the back of your neck, and it will be very irritating. Oh, there we go. I use amplitude and tone extra and axi. I didn't know that. If you have the time to experiment with those, through the new multimedia cab, I'd love to know your thoughts. Okay, so obviously I'm not going to need Axe.io to do that, but and got it. You're using Amplitude through your computer, and Right. Got it. Sorry. Let me speak. Now this is a fascinating thing, and it's the frustrating thing. But the problem is that if I had 36 hours in the day, it would be perfect. But I don't. So the deal is for those of you that don't know, in the IK Multimedia universe, basically you have your tone generator standalone boxes, and for the money, second to none. Literally. So that's $125 plus some change, and it comes with all the Satriani's models. I think that's what the price was. That's just nuts. So the deal is, the AXIO is their audio interface, and Amplitude is kind of where IK Multimedia started. So that was a computer-based deal, generally intended to be used either as a plug-in type of a thing or as a stand-on you plug into your computer and play through your monitors without a track going or without running your DAW. But what Griffin is talking about is like, hey, I can come out of AXIO and use run my guitar into my AXIO, run Amplitude and all the stuff that you've got inside the box there, whether you're doing it in the framework of a session or not, and then come out of the output of that and run that to your FRFR box there, the Tonex cab. I begged my guy, and they're just super tight on inventory right now, so I only got one. And so what I don't know is what happens when you go through the one cabinet with a stereo signal. That is to say, if you're using that to potentially monitor your tracks, which is one of the designs. That's actually one of the great things about these FRFR cabinets, is that they're also partially designed so you can run your tracks or whatever device, your phone, at the same time and jam along, or your computer, whatever. It's really, really cool. However, this summing to mono business, which is what Sonia was talking about, let's see if I can demonstrate this. Sonia, I wonder if somehow, somewhere in the conversion, I'm not having my mono sum, my stereo sum to mono, because usually my streaming application does go out in stereo. All right, so there it is in stereo. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sum it. Come on, come here, you. I'm going to sum that to mono. All right, let me not get the whammy bar. So what happens when you start summing stuff down to mono is you lose the stereo field, and so it combines things that really are intended to live in horizontal space, if you will. So something to think about. All right, let's see here. So this is a new Kramer, but it's really, actually, the funny thing about this is it's a neck through body guitar. The thing about getting older is that there are things that I believe, and then there are things that I learn, and quite often the things that I learn are in contradiction with the things that I believe. So the more that happens, in a good way, it humbles you, and you kind of go, maybe I shouldn't be quite as rigid about that. And I know there are things that are experience-based, but sometimes your experience in one thing is not the necessary experience base that you need for that other thing that you're going to get ready to do. That is to say, I only want to play with a slant cabinet and blah, blah, blah. On smaller stages, a slant cabinet is actually really important to be able to hear yourself. But when you end up on a really big stage and you're 20 or 25 feet away from your cabinet, then that slant cabinet just, pardon the expression, pissing sound up in the air to nobody. And it's actually creating a problem because now it's reflecting off the ceiling. Potentially it's just kind of staticky running around, as opposed to when I travel into the Nashville area or Alabama. The Boogie people are kind enough to provide the oversized rector cabinets, but they provide, in Nashville, they've got the straight ones, largely because at SIR, they're backlining big shows, and you don't need the angled cabinet because you're away from your cabinet. So the idea of like, when and where you need what type of cabinet, again, is really, it's an interesting thing. There are, oh my word. So, and this is not me doing a humble brag. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. There are 23 412 cabinets in this room. It seems like overkill, but each one of them kind of does its own thing. And so the neat thing is, and the 112s and the 212s, there's at least as many, probably more. But the idea is the experience of kind of playing through each of them. You kind of go, oh, this is what this taught me, right? And most of us don't have that, whatever the word you might use. I know what Melissa would say, addiction. But this is what I do for a living. So, it's important that I understand this, and as I really endeavor to really help people spend their money wisely. So the idea is, if I put together which boogie cabinet is best for you, I'm also going to preface that with, say, a number of the things that I'm going to say have to do with any cabinet you might be thinking about, a traditional slant cabinet versus a traditional straight cabinet, a 112, a 212, an open back cabinet, all those nuances. There's just some basic cabinet rules that apply to the different form factors. But in the boogie world in particular, there's some nuance around which particular speakers that are in there. And Albert earlier mentioned this creamback, which for the Badlander 50 combo, to the best of my knowledge, and I'd have to do a little bit of research, so best of my knowledge, that I used to be a lot more definite. So first amp, to the best of my knowledge, that's the first amp that Boogie's put a creamback 12 in, and it's the perfect speaker for that amplifier. And it's part of the rectifier line. Traditionally, you would have expected them to put a Vintage 30 in there. But there's a guy named Rick Skillman who used to be at Celestion. Now he's over at Eminence. But my guess is Rick probably was like, hey, let me send you a creamback for that as well. So there's nuance to not only the cabinet, but which speakers. So as another rabbit trail, first of all, everybody that's kind of hanging out here, thanks so much. I've lost all my... Hold on. Why do I have no feedback on this particular thing? Overlays. Weird. Okay. In any case, everybody that's here, thanks for hanging out. This is, what else am I going to do? So the nuance of the cabinetry and the speakers, when I say the cabinetry, 112, 212, 412, horizontal, vertical, open back, closed back, how many, how spread apart they are. All these things tell a story, and most of the time, those cabinets were designed to do a specific thing. Sometimes we end up doing something that was not out of the design, right? And they just kind of end up working. But each, that collective experience of understanding what each one of these is trying to say and how and why it's trying to say it is part of the experience. I've got, there's a cabinet over there. It's got its back to me right now. It must be angry at me. That is it's one of the first 412 cabinets ever made. It's a 1967, maybe 66, but probably 67, 412 cabinet. May or may not have the original greenbacks in it, but it's a pinstripe Marshall cabinet. And when I was kind of going on this cabinet quest, that was one of the cabinets. I'm like, I've got to get one of those. I need to understand that cabinet. And one of the other things that happens with the cabinets is the wood. The wood dries out just like guitars. It changes, and the vibration, it kind of breaks in. It is an important thing, and it matters. So, yeah. What did I miss here? Oh, yeah, Walter. We our companions. That is. That's hard stuff. I've shed those crocodile tears too, my friend, and it is heartbreaking. So not meaning to diminish that, Let me just reply to Shane. All right, good. There we go. Is it sunny in Tacoma? No. Animal person too? Absolutely no. It's hard. There we go. Cookie. There we go. Oh, that's awesome. They are definitely members of the family. There we go. Come on. Excellent. I once had a friend of mine said to Joe Satriani before I cleaned up my life, he said, "The man who smokes the pot of 10 men." I was like, I don't think that was a compliment, and the look on Joe's face was not a complimentary one. Yes, it did. What did I miss? It was originally a stiletto cab. So this is the crazy thing is it's like, as a line morphs, these really kind of interesting things happen. I've been researching these cabinets because I want to be as factually accurate as I can, and I want to be able to put up a page from the catalog and kind of go, this is what I discovered about the rectifier traditional cabinets. This is where I'm seeing them. That's awesome. All right, THD. Oh, hot plate. Awesome. Come on. All right, let's see. Okay. I'm sure you do, my friend. There we go, Melissa with the idea. So that's exactly for fountains, etc. You could slip it over the neck holder. So I was thinking about something that you stick under that makes it such. But so that is to say the black kind of piping, if you will, that sits on there. I was thinking that you put some sort of little sheath that then kind of provides a little extra girth, if you will, so when you slip that original thing back on there, it doesn't go anywhere. But the other thing is you could probably just use medical, that kind of funny tubing, like the stethoscope stuff, and just put that on there and cut that off. I got to try that. 51, young boy. There we go. Come on, get to work. I'm speaking to myself too there. And now is a great time for music. I love old people. Oh, my word. Okay. Well, there we go. Oh, that's hilarious. You're so funny. Tubes are smaller than cabinets. 10 cabs per ear. There we go. Come on. Thank you for your share. Oh, there's a great YouTube video there. Cabinets Anonymous. I probably shouldn't make fun of recovery. So, just so you know, first of all, no judgment out there. I can tell you, but if we're going to be totally honest, there was a period of time where I had a serious problem with drugs and alcohol. Unfortunately, I was able to move past that, and so in terms of the lingo, the common way of saying that would be that I'm in recovery, which is really cool. But it's not. It's the other thing is that we live in a world that judges really easily, and we're all kind of on our own journey. Joe got angry at John Cuniberti for smoking pot. And erasing a good take. He told John, never smoke pot again during my sessions. I haven't heard that story. I won't be asking John about that, but that's pretty funny. I seem to recall the Guitar Center stands use that medical tubing for a long time, but that's right. But the other thing is that much of the time they'll also have a little, for lack of a better word, a nipple that fits in there that's in theory closes the tube. Oh, you know what? That's right. No, that is actually, I think that little end cap, if you will, I think probably prevents it so you don't kind of go bang and the insulation gives way and you scratch the back of your neck. All right, I've gone through all the chat here, so let me get back to Chris's question. Chris, you still in the building here, my friend? So this is a really good one. Do I detune guitars that are in storage? And the answer is no, but I also don't keep guitars in storage in some place where there's a lot of weather variation. So I also won't ask Joe. Generally speaking, it's like, hey, do you remember that perfect take that got erased? How's that feel? Let me take you back to that moment. Oh, that is funny. All right, Chris, awesome. Noted, but I'm saying that just for the sake of conversation. So the detuning of guitars. It's a funny thing. One of the videos that I'm getting ready to make, and I'm making, a list of things, and part of it is there's stuff like this Roland JC120 video took an inconceivable amount of time, but part of that is the folks at Roland have been so unbelievably good to me that I was like, I'm going to go the extra mile. I'm going to do a 15-minute video on something that may not get a ton of views, but for whoever watches it, and for the people that are my friends at Roland, they get a chance to gave me the opportunity to go, let me put my time where my heart is, right? But in terms of, there are certain videos that, like, how do you know when to change strings? And I think we talked about this last time. But generally speaking, and this one needs to have it, if you run your thumb underneath the bottom of the D string and you feel the pinning, then it's time. Conversely, on a wound G string on an acoustic, like I tested on the acoustic that I played on Wednesday night, the same thing is true. You'll actually feel it. Generally speaking, you'll feel it on your thinnest wound string. As soon as you can kind of feel the pitting underneath there, it's time to get rid of it. And the last time I changed strings on the Flying V, I actually saved the string such that I'm actually going to be able to show a photo, and you can actually see when you actually look up close. I'm not going to be able to do it with this lens here. But I'll photograph it, and you can actually see there's actually kind of, the string begins to kind of get brown a little bit. And then you can see the spots where it's kind of shiny, where it's kind of worn into the string. And basically you're slowly erasing the string, if you will. Probably not great for your frets, but your frets should be hard on your string. But still, you're now kind of sawing on the fret wire with the string that's now kind of got this rough edge where, it's got a hole inside the winding where it's separated. And that's kind of now creating this rough edge. It's kind of, if you will, one of the things that people do. And I actually don't do this. I'll steel wool the fingerboard. It's kind of steel wooling, if you will, with the string on the fret. And it's not good. It's actually a great idea to wipe your strings down, especially if you got at all sweaty fingers. My fingers, thankfully, are really, really dry. But it's generally. I will say, before I put a guitar away that I know I'm not going to open up for a minute, I will go underneath each one of the strings with a polish cloth and kind of wipe any of the goop out of there just to make sure that it doesn't get gross. Oh my word. Whoa. So, first of all, it's an interesting thing. I'm going to presume, and please don't answer this, that you are not storing it with a tremolo arm on, because I actually remember in years when I used to teach in the same places as the people I was teaching, people would come into the teaching studio and they would open up their guitar case and they have their whammy bar still on the guitar. And it's like, you want to take that thing off and put it in the cubby, So the idea, and just in case you didn't know, and this actually, I'm gonna do a video also on changing strings on with lock and fine tuning tremolos, because there's a bunch of this stuff. It's like, it's not a million people are gonna watch this stuff, but the people that are gonna search that, they'll be like, thank you, holy cow. Because these are things that it's, again, to protect and serve. It's really serving the guitar community, and it's something that I'm deeply passionate about. And I guess that's one of the reasons folks like you show up. All right, it's getting close enough to the 11 a.m. time. Luckily, there was no damage. No, the arm is in the case storage. No, that's good. I've never heard that happening where that happened. So the deal is. And I'm going to ask Gary Brower about it. But I first of all, let me answer the obvious part of this for me with a locking fine-tuning tremolo. You want to do as much as is possible to keep it at whatever tuning, E, E flat, drop D, drop C, and let it live there. Because the relationship between the string tension and the gauge that you use and the springs is a really, really important one. By the way, this is really groovy here. I love that Kramer did this. So this is what Chris was talking about. Was he was talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, the claw came loose from the body. Holy cow. So there are springs that are attached to the back of the block there, and that claw pulls them tighter or looser. And that in turn will have an effect on where this tremolo will sit. And then in turn you can adjust the height of the strings using these two posts here. But, all these things. So it's actually, you know what, probably worth doing hey, there we go. Brad, I've missed you, my man. I saw a comment somewhere. All right, you are on the Facebook as you are now. I missed you, my friend. I trust you're doing great. So the funny thing is, thank you. No, if you get a moment, I'll post it later today on Facebook. I just did a video. It went live this morning for the JC120 plugin, which is awesome. So that is the JC120. That right there is my JC50, right? Or the 50, yeah. So it's basically a mono version. And the thing is that I hate the stereo chorus sum to mono. Just one of my least favorite sounds ever. So that amp, I took a drive all the way up to Sacramento to kind of go, well, let me plug into this thing and see if it's groovy. And I had some stuff that was in storage that I traded for, and I'm like, it sounds great. And what's neat about it, okay, the screws that attach the block to the bottom of the trem. Okay. Thanks for that. So, for those of you who don't know, it's really groovy. I mean, like, shockingly groovy. The plugin and the 112 guy. It's because the thing is that to mic an actual JC120, you need two mics. You can't do it with one. To get the stereo chorus, you need the hard left and hard right, and you don't want to sum it to mono in the center. But the little JC50, it sounds great. It sounds kind of like the perfect blend. It is in mono, but it sounds like if you could sum a JC120 to mono and it didn't get messed up, that's how it should sound. In days of old, on a stock Strat, you would have the bridge and the block, and if you lifted up the saddles, there would be 3 Phillips head screws that you would tighten to keep the block and the bridge nice and snug together. And I think what Chris is describing is those loosened up. And I could see after some serious flogging there. And the funny thing is those will be hidden underneath the saddles there. So the moral of that story is, from time to time, especially after a couple of decades, might not be a bad idea. Because normally, we don't take the saddle pieces off. But I will say, I do remember going, and I've told this story before, going over to Joe Satriani's apartment back when he lived in Berkeley, and he'd completely disassembled his entire Floyd Rose. And I'm like, for me, I'm like I said before, I want to keep it attention. I don't want to mess with it at all. But he had, and he was cleaning it, and he's a meticulous guy. And I said, what are you doing? So I'm cleaning it. And, so... And, he obviously knows a lot about playing in tune. So, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Thinking to myself, I would never have done that. But the point being, that's a really good opportunity to kind of go, hey, I've got the saddles off. Let me do this. So, in any case. Yes. And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. You're talking again. You've got the block, the springs go into the block, and then the top of the tremolo sits on that block, and it's the screws that attach that. Or are you talking about the set screws into the body for the tremolo? Either way. The idea is that, if you've got a separate block that's screwed in, especially like those old style Strats, probably not a bad idea from time to time. The challenge is that when you take, to be able to get to those screws, you got to take the saddles off to be able to get to the screws to tighten that down. So it means you're going to kind of hose your intonation, but you can always redo it. There you go. The screws on the top of the block. There we go. All right. Okay. If I were building myself a custom guitar, what features would be essential? Well, that's funny you should ask. Funny that you should ask that. Now, interestingly enough, if you look at these two guitars, they actually have an awful lot in common. This guy will be Gibson scale. This guy will be Fender scale. This guy is neck through body. This is a set neck design. But the idea is it's going to have a Floyd. It's going to have some sort of 5-way switch. This guy's got an extra, hold on, it's this guy, little extra series parallel guy here, which I'm actually really enjoying. So I'm going to figure out how to get that in here. The challenge is I love push pots. The Sustainiac is activated like this, and this is where you change between the fundamental and the octave. But Gary was adamant. He said, look, every time Joe flies, it's a good possibility that one of the push things breaks in the case. It's just what happens on the push pots. The push pull, I should say, describe it as a pull push. That doesn't happen with. I really kind of find this a slightly clunky user experience, but it's better to have it be a clunky user experience that works than a super sexy experience that breaks. And Joe has techs and things in different guitars. But the thing about this particular guitar, it really is the culmination of the work that I did with Gary Brower, and kind of accidentally falling in love with a Flying V. I had one upstairs. It was in my practice zone, and I kind of quickly discovered that it's really comfortable. And you can adjust with your legs there, kind of where the thing sits. And I've also discovered in this particular chair here that I've got what I would normally put, a Segovia type of Delio. Let me not do that. There we go. On your left leg, I actually put that underneath my right leg because, as you might have heard me mention before, because of the nature of the Flying V, the lower bout sits a little bit lower. So this allows the guitar to kind of sit a little bit higher because it's not dipping down here. And what was happening, it was impacting my ability to palm mute the low E string when I was doing stuff over there. Thank you for reminding me. Gosh darn it, head to toe. Even though it's a locking fine-tuning tremolo, it doesn't actually have them, but locking tuners could be a time where maybe a screw gets lost. I'm old enough at this point where I have to be really careful about changing my high E string in a venue. Usually the venue is dark, and you've got to really get that string straight down into where it needs to sit. You don't want it a little off to the edge, because then it kind of does this strange bendy thing, and it will potentially break in the middle of a show, which is a really not good thing. So the idea is at some point you could find yourself, holy cow, I can't clamp down. So locking tuners are a must, and I'm really surprised I actually don't have them on here, but these are just the stock tuners. And because we put the Floyd on here right away, it wasn't necessary, but as a backup plan, really good idea. For me, I'm a Floyd guy. I'm actually a Floyd Rose endorser, which is kind of crazy. I absolutely... Now, let me not be so extreme. I don't like the feel on a Gibson of an unbound neck. And the funny thing is I've got kind of my equivalent of the Kirk Hammett guitar over there. And it was once I kind of got that guitar and I started playing it, I was like, what is that I'm not digging? I'm like, oh, I don't like on a Gibson to feel the edge of the fingerboard over here. I want to feel the binding. It's actually a funny thing. It's just like, there are three primary modalities through which most people learn. Visual, most guitar players. Auditory. I'm a terrible auditory learner. If Melissa tells me more than 4 things at the store, I'll come home with 2 if I'm lucky. It is not my gateway for learning. And then there's kinesthetic, by touch. It's like if I practice it long enough and I sit there and I work with it, I'll be able to play it. So tactile learning, if you will. But the thing is that there is a tactile sense, and there are things that I'm not aware of that are hyper nuanced to my existence. And I was like, I couldn't figure out what was giving me the heebie-jeebies. I'm like, oh, it's that it's not that it's not a bowed neck, and the feeling of it. I really, so for me, kind of, if it's this type of neck, if it's, let's say it's a Charvel type maple neck, don't need a binding on it. That would be kind of silly. And there are some guitars, the Kenny Wayne Shepherd Strat. It's got binding on the neck, kind of like they went for kind of a jazz mastery kind of thing on it. And that feels weird. What I love about it on this guitar, I don't like about it on the Strat. But when it comes to a Les Paul and a Gibson, got to have binding on the side. I hate and that's one of the things that kind of on the slightly less expensive ones that you don't get. The interesting thing is that I've got this lovely Epiphone Les Paul over there, and it's got a bound fingerboard, and I love that. And you're totally correct. I think it's very visually striking. And it's not that it's about looks, but it is partially. But again, the 5-way switch, so you can have ideally some sort of stratoid type of thing, a super strat in a Gibson body, right? The thing is I was looking at this is the stock configuration of the knobs on a Flying V, and basically it's the most crazy setup ever. Master tone. I think this is the bridge volume and this is the neck pickup volume, but it's just like, ideally it should have been like volume, right? Neck. Like, the idea is it would have continuity with a Les Paul where you're like, okay, volume for your neck, volume for your bridge. And then a master tone. But it's not. But I was looking at that and I went, there's a parallelogram waiting there. So I was like, hey, Gary, go ahead and drill that. And so, we basically now have a Les Paul style neck volume, neck tone, bridge volume, bridge tone, and then the 5-way pickup selector. And a Sustainiac that you engage like that, and then this kind of brings it up the octave or the fundamental. Pick guard kind of like a Strat. Having a pick guard does change. There's a little bit of hollow in there. You get a little bit of hollow underneath there, and there's some sound there. I've kind of become a fan of. The interesting thing is that the hardware that was. These aren't the original tuners. We put these tuners on there, but we didn't put locking tuners on there. I actually prefer the satin gold finish. It's just not quite so. It's like back in the day when people would kind of chrome their rims. It's just a little much. I obviously like gold hardware, but I kind of like the slightly understated satin hardware. But to tell you the truth, I don't mind that the tuning pegs pop, and obviously this Gibson logo here, or the fake Gibson logo that I got on Etsy. So it doesn't bother me, but collectively, I really did put all the things. Chris, per your question, if I was building myself a custom guitar, what features would be essential? All those things are essential to my daily driver, the guitar that kind of allows me to do all the things that I love to do. Is there anything that I definitely wouldn't want on it? It's a great question. Yeah. I don't like the feel of stainless steel frets for the most part. Again, it's a funny thing. So much of the instrument when we play is tactile, and it's one of the things I'm really working on. Well, do you remember my social media posts last week with the box of 24 batteries? So I come down here yesterday morning. My guitar is plugged in. Now, the Sustainiac is still working, but I'm like, you just got the box of batteries. You ran your last battery down. Have you learned? Nothing. So you were precisely correct. It does run the battery down, apparently, when it's just connected like that. It's not my guess is if I had a note sustaining, I think it would run out faster. But it does seem to drain the battery when you leave it plugged in. You're supposed to remember to unplug it. So I am 51% positive that you're supposed to unplug it every time. It's a great question. And so, and it's just like, and you just kind of put the guitar down thinking you're going to come back and pick it up, and you forget. Somebody was talking about, I need to do the rechargeables, and I was like, I had some rechargeables, and I lost the receptacle for this Taken battery. The charging thing for it has taken a walk. I don't know where it is. In any case, all right. Hey, folks. I need to kind of get ready for my day of teaching. This has been really cool. I basically slept for about an hour and a half last night because the YouTube thing. I'm still kind of developing a rhythm. The deep dive videos, they just take a lot of time. But there are some things that are worth not cutting corners on, right? Especially when it comes to something that's like a thank you for the folks like at Roland/Boss who've been so incredibly good to me. And, that the CE1 stereo chorus was one of my first purchases in the very early 80s. They're a company that, the idea that they might send me something or give me a free plugin is just like, it's just like, it's an industry of relationships. And so it's really easy if you're not careful to kind of be like, oh, more free gear. This is great. This is awesome. And the idea is you're going to do demos with it and use it and whatever. But it's also really important, in my opinion, to kind of go, how am I contributing back? How am I, when they make the time and energy and money to invest, send something to me, like Sonia's pedal there, when it's time for payback, am I giving my best? Because that's a really... I think there is something... oh, look at all these comments here. Hello, folks. Oh, Sonia, there we go. There we go. The idea is that, folks like Sonia, they invest a lot of time, energy, and money. They have sleepless nights, tired days from, kind of brainstorming things, for people to use. And it's very easy when there's an abundance of things coming through the door to become a little gluttonous if you're not careful, right? And the important part, is to realize when there's so much given to you, there's a lot that's expected, and if you don't hold yourself accountable, you can get yourself into a morally corrupt deficiency in terms of the laws of the universe and I don't normally think of it as the laws of the universe, but we'll keep it there, where it's just kind of like, trying to take care of people. And kind of like, when we figure out the right place in Groovy Gadgets, to utilize, the fulcrum, it's going to be done right, and so I'm just kind of figuring a bunch of these things out. So, yeah. All right. Equilibrium. Thank you. That's a great word. Because yes, and yes. Griffin, thank you, my friend. There you go. The part of this, there's certain videos of what's great about, and Sonia's the Fulcrum is going to get a Groovy Gadgets, but many of the Groovy Gadgets are going to be these really quick, easy to do videos where it's not this kind of deep dive where I do 7 demos and I do captures of all the plugins and the different things that are changing and all of this, because that's not the scope. But there's an equilibrium. I like that. Albert, thanks again. Always a pleasure. I just did that. Hold on. My classical needs to be unplugged. I finished the track and totally spaced on unplugging. There we go. Come on. I got to talk to Thomas about that circuit. Okay, here you go. Oh, there you go. All right, there we go. There we go. Cool. Good to know. Oh, wait. I just picked up a cheap Epi Bonamassa 335 bound neck, similar to you. It's a better fit and finish than my custom shot 335 by a long way. Okay, hang on. So I gotta grab I got to grab Marty. Hang on. So this is I think a $699 or an $899 guitar. I'm sure you can hear it. It's like I pulled this thing out of the case. Needs a little bit of truss rod adjustment, a little action adjustment. I'm like, this guitar, and I was at somewhere and I said, this guitar's going to change my life. And it's not broken in yet. But I was like, holy cow, this is a great guitar. And I had an ES335, a Gibson. It was like a $2,000 guitar. I was very excited. I was like, okay, I need to get this guitar. I found it, went and played it. And I was like, I wasn't playing the guitar. It's like, it's out of here. I actually traded it for a Fillmore head and cabinet, which was, for me, a really great win. But this guitar is a better instrument. It may not be as fancy. This is probably a veneer top. But gosh darn it, I am so excited. So that is to say, if I could say there's one thing about a piece of gear, and I don't care how cheap or how expensive it is, the one quantified thing is when you pick it up, are you excited to pick it up? And the funny thing is, every time I pick this guitar up, I'm kind of like, this is cool. I'm going to do something a little bit different. And I love that it does that. And it also, like, and this is so funny because, when I started kind of hanging out with the Gibson people, I was like, oh, I don't want to be perceived as an Epiphone player, and I had this whole conversation of stupidity in my head. And then I got, you can see there's an Epiphone Firebird right there. And I saw that guitar and I was like, oh, I love this. And I got it on, for like $800 off of Reverb. And like, that guitar and I, have spent a lot of time playing it. It's got Gibson mini humbuckers and it sounds great. And all of a sudden I was like, I guess I just had a big head. I don't traditionally have the like 80s mentality. But I realized, I was like, wow. So like my attitude was like, I'm too good to play an Epiphone. I'm just like, dick. It's just, it's just kind of like, okay. It's nice getting older because you kind of go, that's not the attitude, right? You kind of go, okay, learning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I need to get going. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for, like I said at the beginning of the stream, and the graphic of the stream was a question mark. I had no idea what I was going to do. I knew it was going to be cool because I have faith around these things, but at the same time, I was like, and Chris, thank you as always for your questions. They are always such a lifesaver, and it gets me thinking about stuff and kind of, gets the mental juices flowing. So I'm not thinking about inside my bubble, right? And kind of, the privilege of being able to be here and have people giving the feedback. Again, your Epi Bonamassa 335. By the way, there's one on Craigslist that I've just been eyeing, and I can't drop the money on it, but, I have been tempted, so let's just leave it there. In any case, everybody, have a lovely weekend. Thanks for hanging out. What else would I be doing on a Saturday morning? Maybe practicing, hanging out with Melissa, but the point being, the privilege of being able to hang out here and protect and serve the community as best as I can. I will say, in closing this, I'm about to enter into a new phase. Griffin has, first of all, always been such a great support in particular. Not that Chris hasn't been, but Griffin is like, 15-minute fundamentals, 15-minute fundamentals. And anytime I post anything about it, he's always there, which is great. But I'm also about to start taking a Spotify, kind of this very unique little group that I'm going to do for the next 6 months, this very intensive Spotify training as I start to drop these singles. So it's a really exciting time. And so, to see all these things kind of happening at the same time is really neat. I am super excited to kind of I love to learn, but the other thing is I love to be able to kind of share the things that I learn. So I'm also excited that as there was this training that happened this week before I signed up. The guy's name is Chris Greenwood. He goes by Manifest, Manafest. He's got like hundreds of millions of streams on Spotify. I'm like, that's the guy I want to study with. So I'm going to be part of kind of his mastermind, his little group. No, mastermind's an intense one. It's a little small group. But the point being is that having a community of sorts when you're getting ready to release music is a huge deal. And it's a privilege, and to have the depth of field around it's more than just like, I was in a band that was famous. It's actually based on a relational thing. That is something that you can't buy, you can't imitate, you can't fake. It's something that happens organically, and it's something that if you don't treasure it and value it and nurture it, there's a lot given to you. There's going to be a lot that's required. So, I'm really grateful for and thankful for that, because as I'm kind of getting ready to go into this Spotify thing, where we're going to be investing a lot of time and energy and money, but realizing how important the community of people that are like Swagger, Radar came like Swagger, and the Doppler gangers and all of that stuff. It matters, and it's extremely important to me, and it's a privilege to have a community of people that I get to be a part of, and so I just want to say thank you. I don't know what the next 6 to 12 months holds, but I know that this next 30 days I'm really doing a lot to try and revolutionize my world. So let's see how we do in the beginning of May. All right, much love. I'll see you next Saturday. Thanks again. Cheers for now. Oh, so not only have I lost everything on my interface here, I don't have the ability to end this session other than quitting this application. I'd love to know what I did. I have none of my controls. Hold on a second. No, hang on. All right, you can watch me this is kind of funny. All right, there's close, but that's not really what I want to do. Show. Oh, there we go. I must have hit some. There we go. Key command. In any case, for those that are here, now I can see the number. Thank you very much. It really